This is our Unit 7 toolkit. I'm going to look at all the problems on the parabolas, which is 5, 6, 7, and 8. Number 5, write the standard form of a parabola equation. Now, this is not your circle equation that we did in the first video. Remember, your circle equation had two squares. Here had the radius squared. Parabola does not have a radius. So our equation is x minus h squared. It starts the same way, but then it equals 4p times y minus k. The p, it says, what does the p represent? Remember, when you have the parabola, inside the parabola is the focus point, outside the parabola is your directrix. The p is the distance from this vertex to either the focus or the directrix. We usually talk about it in terms of the focus. Distance from here, the vertex, to the focus point. From the vertex to the focus. The distances between the vertex and focus, that's this distance, which again we just said was p, and between the vertex and directrix are equal. Whatever that p-value is here, it's going to be the same distance from here to that dashed line. Number 6 asks us to write the equation in graphing form and then graph the equation on the grid provided. So this is a lot like the work, if you did watch the circle video, when we did all this, completing the square with the plus blanks. It's a lot like this work. Now the difference is, on the circle, we had two blanks. We had two variables that we had to complete the square with, the x's and the y's. The difference here is that we only have to do that with the x's. So there should only be one plus blank on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by combining, keeping the x's together, these x squared plus 6x. Then I'm going to put plus blank. Now what I'm doing is I'm moving the rest of it. Everything else gets moved over to the side with the 0. So this, if I put the work up here, I'm going to add 12y to both sides. And I'm going to add 15 to both sides, which means on the other side of my equation, now I've got positive 12y plus 15. And don't forget, we have to put the plus blank when we complete the square with the x's. So now I'm taking half of the 6, positive 6 becomes positive 3 on all these. 3 times 3 is 9, which means that's a 9 there, which means this, when we combine like terms, will be 15 plus 9 is 24. The last thing we have to do is we have to factor it, because again, we're trying to get all of this to look like this standard form with 4p times y minus k. The y inside the parentheses has to have a 1 in front. So we're taking a look right in front of the y here. There's a 12 there. That number, exactly as it is, gets factored out, which means this whole thing gets divided by 12. Divide by 12 gives you y. Divide by 12 here gives you positive 2. So now we can use this to get what we need to graph it. Based on this, our vertex is the opposite of these for the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate, like the circle. So it becomes negative 3 and negative 2. There's negative 3 and negative 2. There's our vertex. So a parabola's got to go either up from there or down. Since it's positive 12 in front, that means this parabola is going to go open upwards. Now this 12, remember that 12 is matching up with 4p here. So it's a multiple of 4. And by the way, if you don't get a multiple of 4 here, that means you made a mistake somewhere. The questions have been written so that they should work out nicely. This one is nice because 4 times 3 gives you the 12, which means our p-value is positive 3. So from this vertex, we have to go up 1, 2, 3. There's our focus point, which means our parabola, now when we sketch it, will go up around that focus point. Excuse me. Now for the directrix, if I'm going to graph this dashed line, I'm going to go from the opposite direction. I went up 3 for the focus, down 3 gives me the directrix line going left to right that way. And there my graph is done. And number 7, we're asked to write the equation of a parabola given the following information. It says sketch a graph to help. Now what we're looking for is, if we go back to this equation, we need three things. We need this h value, the k value, and the p value. In other words, we need the vertex, which hopefully they've given us, which remember is h and k, and we need the p value. Now in part A, they give us the vertex, so that makes a little bit easier. So we're going to plug this into that standard form. It becomes x plus 2 squared. So this x minus h squared became x plus 2 squared. That negative 2 change signs inside the parentheses. And then the y minus, y minus 5, k value is 5. Plugging this in, positive 5 becomes minus 5. Now the tough part is finding the p value, because they didn't tell us what p equaled. Now if you look at what else they did tell us, the focus, they gave us the vertex and focus. That means if I sketch this, it says sketch a graph to help. If I go left 2 and up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by the way, you'll have a graph, you'll have a grid to do this on the test, so you wouldn't have to create your own like this. Then the focus point, negative 2 up 7, is here. That means the parabola is going to go up like this. This distance is that p value. So it's going from 5 to 7, which is 2 units. So in this case, our p value is positive 2. So to get this number in front, it's 4 times that value of 2, which becomes 8. There's our standard form of the equation. Now these two B and C are a lot more difficult because they don't give us either of the things we need. They don't give us the vertex or the p-value. They give us focus and directrix. Now for the focus, let's go ahead and graph the focus first at 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Directrix y equals -1. That means on the y-axis at -1, there's -1 on the y-axis. I have this dashed line going through. Now if I compare that to my first sketch over here, again the directrix is outside, the focus point is inside, and now the bell's ringing, so I'm going to pause for a moment. Again, focus point is inside, directrix is outside, like this, which means our parabola's got to go in here. Now to find the actual vertex, it's got to be halfway between this point and the dashed line. Now this point again was up 4 and 5. This is down 1. This is 6 total units, if you count them up, 6 total units from here to here. Half of that distance is 3, which means our p-value is 3. Now if I can go here down 3, I can go here up 3. 1, 2, 3. Either way, those coordinates are now 4 and +2. So that's our vertex. There's our vertex right there. That's the hard part, is you have to be able to draw both of these, go halfway between, find that vertex. So now I've done all the hard work. Now it's just plugging in. X minus 4 squared equals, p-value is +3 because it's going upwards. Whoa. Which means it's 4 times that +3, which is 12. And then y minus that 2. And there is our equation. So that's the hardest version, which I believe is the one you'll see on your test with focus and directrix. So now another example of focus and directrix. -3, focus at -3, -6. -3, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the way down here. Now directrix is at y equals -2, which is going through -2 there. Now notice, with this you're being your focus, again the vertex is halfway between these, which means the parabola is going down.
Please call the guidance office. Mr. Magnus, please call guidance.
Don't they realize I'm trying to make a video here? Come on now. So halfway between, we're going from -2, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Half of that is 2, 1, 2. So this new point, that's our vertex, is at -3, and -1, 2, 3, 4. So for part C, vertex -3, -4. The p-value this time is negative because, again, the parabola is pointing down, and to go from the vertex to the focus, we have to go downwards. And that p-value is -2 because it was 2 spaces from here to here, 2 spaces from here to here. Again, that's the hard work. Now we're plugging in x plus 3 squared equals 4 times the negative 2, the p-value, which is negative 8, y plus 4, and there's the equation for part C. Number 8 asks us to state whether each equation below represents a circle or a parabola and explain why. When you look at these two equations, the big difference is that this one has an x squared, this one has x squared and y squared. When you have one squared term, when there's only one of these, that's a parabola. So this one's parabola because only the x is squared. If both x and y squared are, or both x and y are squared like this one, this is the circle. Both x and y are squared. And remember, you can always go back to the standard form. The standard form here for parabola, there's x being squared, the y is not, there's no square on the y. And if I go way back to number 1 with the graphing circles, there's x being squared, there's y being squared, both of them have the square. That's the circle, that's the parabola. So part A, or the first one is parabola, the second one is circle.